Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the Grayscale trusts, and we're also going to be going over what's been happening in the market lately and why the market's selling off so aggressively. So with that being said, let's get it. Okay, so in the portfolio, as you guys can see, it is another massive red day. We are buying. I'll get more into this in a video tomorrow, I believe, or a later video. But you can see we have a lot more cash on hand than we had before, so we've nearly increased our cash on hand in this account by roughly about 50%. I got to be honest with y'all. I was expecting a pullback right around this time of year. I was not expecting the pullback to be this large, though. But then again, we've been through the pandemic crash. We've been through the 2020 bear market, or 2020 and 2022, and the bull markets in 2021 and 2023 and 2024. We've also lived through two crypto bull and bear markets. So is this really shaking us as traders and investors? Not really. Could it become something worse? Yeah, possibly. But in my opinion, I think that traders and investors overall are reacting irrationally. I think that these people are losing their minds over nothing. I've personally looked at a lot of the different earnings that these companies have had, like Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon. I've even looked a little bit deeper into a lot of these. Typically, I only look at these on surface levels and say, okay, did they meet or beat? What is the reason that they meet and or beat or missed expectations, right? And then I look at the underlying reasons and say, okay, not that big of a deal. If it had like a little tiny miss, like 0.1%, who cares? And I've looked at a lot of the earnings, and to be honest, I think the earnings this season have been pretty good. I think that the market's tripping. If you ask me, they're tripping balls, and everybody's freaking out because that's what markets do. People can't control their emotions for some reason, and so that's kind of just what happens. People are just losing their shit, and they're missing the forest for the trees, is what I mean to say. So you guys can see we got a pretty large pullback here on the NASDAQ. Again, this is a lot bigger than I was expecting. I was expecting a pretty decent sized pullback, but I was thinking the bottom of this channel here was going to be it, and apparently that's not it. So 12% pullback. The thing I do want to point out here is every time we get oversold on the RSI, again, this is a key indicator. You can see nearly every time it happens, we do get a massive squeeze to the upside. It even does happen during bear markets. Although the thing is, we have not actually broken structure yet on the NASDAQ. So you can see right here is pretty much where we're sitting. This resistance turns support here. We would need to get below this low right here at 17,000 to actually basically get below it and then retest it as resistance to actually being a bear market. So in my opinion, technically speaking, that has not happened. I don't think it's going to happen. And again, a bear market is defined as anything 20% or greater down from the previous all-time highs. So we're in a correction, but not a bear market. And the RSI is massively oversold on the daily time frame. As you guys can see, every single time this thing did pop off of being oversold. This was the start of the new bull market back here in the, or not the new bull market, but the new uptrend after its slight pullback in basically this time last year. I will say this, okay? So the yield curve is about to uninvert, or at least it looks that way. You can see the 2-10-year percentage point spread is only 9 percentage points here, so it's very, very close to uninverting. I would be more concerned about what the market's going to do when the yield curve uninverts, but and then there's also the spike on the VIX. So the VIX had a huge spike, as you guys can see, big, massive spike here all the way up to 30. It's possible this may not be the end of the sell-off, but I'm willing to bet that next week we probably get some kind of rebound. That would be my guess, because again, the last time that we had one of these was actually during the start of the bull run that we had. Because again, the end of the bear market was October of 2022 for stocks and crypto, and the start of the bull market, we had a massive VIX spike in March of 2023, which was again at the start of the new bull market. So the VIX spiking up like this, in my opinion, doesn't really mean much of anything. It just basically looking at everything in total. I see this as nothing more than a correction, not an actual recession and or bear market. The only concern I have is that the unemployment rate is going up, but then again, there's a lot of things that could contribute to that. It could be quits. It could be like people switching jobs, people going from full-time to part-time. It could be a lot of things like job mergers, illegal immigrants getting jobs, and then, like, I don't know exactly. Like, there could be a situation realistically where, like, illegal immigrants, um, let's say Trump gets elected in January, ICE gets re-implemented, and they all get shipped back to the country that they came from, right? So they're out of U.S. jobs. Unemployment could spike up to 15%, 20%, just like it did during the pandemic. But it doesn't necessarily mean we're in a recession, right? Like you guys can see in 2020, this thing just went absolutely vertical. Unemployment went up to basically 9%, but that's because a lot of people were quitting their jobs and were getting laid off because of the pandemic. It didn't necessarily mean there was a bear market. And again, the market crash we had was only like 2 to 4 months. It was basically nothing. So, in my opinion, I don't think a full-blown recession has necessarily reared its head yet. I think people are just overreacting. And so, anyways, with that being said, let's get into the content. So naturally, crypto has pulled back on this. And again, I'll get more into this in a later video, but I'll just go over the numbers here with you guys real quick. So LTCN, still looking at $13 to $15 as support here. If we get below that, which I don't think is going to happen, it'll be at $10 as support, 25 to 27 on resistance there. These swing highs all the way up here at 54. So it's in the buy zone. I mean, you guys can do what you want to with that. The targets here are looking roughly about 84% to 273%. And BCHG, so we're getting closer to the support. I do suspect it's probably going to touch it at some point. So maybe wick down, touch it, and then zoom back up when the market recovers next week, which I do personally think is going to happen. So 7 to 770 on support, 1020 to 1270 on resistance. Above that, roughly about $18 to $20, and then $24 all the way up at the swing high. So you'd be looking at about 70%, 169%, 217% gain. And if you're worried about like a situation like, oh, there's going to be a recession, like, or something like that, then just my opinion, not financial advice, but the last place you probably want to have your money is in crypto. Again, this is the reason why we've said forever, unless you're a multimillionaire and you have tons and tons of money and tons of passive income, you never have to worry about income again, right? Unless you're in that situation, in my opinion, it's a good idea to have an emergency fund of at least 6 to 12 months. And the last place that anybody should be putting their money, in my opinion, is into something like crypto, because it is the riskiest risk-on asset. But there's a reason why we have a split between a third stocks, a third crypto, and a third cash. There's a reason for that, to hedge against situations like this where there could potentially be a major pullback and or maybe some kind of bear market or something like that. It's just common sense financial stuff. But again, you guys, you got your own money, do what you want with it. So 380 to 420 here on support. Again, HZEN is in the support. We are in a falling wedge. That's a bullish pattern. You guys can do what you want with that. So $7 to $8 at resistance, 10.5 all the way up at the swing high up there. So 97% and 157% respectively. ETCG, so we are, once again, a lot of these are sitting pretty much perfectly in support. In my opinion, now is the time to buy. But again, if you think it's going to go lower and you're scared and you don't want to buy it because you're afraid your money's going to get dumped on, I would totally understand. I'm not going to object to that. So 860 to 990 here at support. We're pretty much looking at the top of this resistance up here, so about 1580. And then roughly about 1770 all the way up to $20 here. So from here to the resistance, you're looking at about 72%, and then all the way up to the highs up there, 118% move. ETH. So this is back within support. So support is between 23 to 28.50. The target we're looking for is, and again, this is only if you have the spot Ether ETF, because again, this was a conversion. Normally I wouldn't cover this, but I'll just go ahead and do it anyway since the old chart's still up here. So $47 would be the target, roughly about this cup and handle pattern target, which was confirmed. But again, we have pulled back into the support zone there. Like I told you guys before, just because there was a breakout here, it doesn't mean that price can't go up and down and sideways and all that before eventually touching this target. So 80% move there. So Phil G, this thing finally has come back down into the support. I honestly wasn't ever sure if it was even going to do it, but it's there. It finally made it back down there. So we've been talking about this one forever. So you guys can see this was major resistance previously during the bear market. Now we are finally retesting as support. So below that, if you're concerned it'll go lower, you're looking at roughly about $5 to $12, $5 to $12 and a quarter, somewhere in there. This little zone right here is 37 to 40. And the all-time high up here at 400. So just from the zone to the all-time high is 882%. And then from the lower level here, which I'm not sure it's going to go that low, but you can see obviously this would be insane. So it'd be 7,200% gain. GBAT, so it did crack this resistance. We do have a lower low here. I'm looking at roughly about 450 to 520 as the support there, and then the swing high is all the way up here at 32. And again, I'll get into the kind of the broader view and basically what we understand of everything that's going on in the markets right now and the implications of it in a later video. We're not going to do that now because we don't have time. We got to do the Grayscale trust, so 557%. GLIV, so we got a lower low here. Again, this is pretty much right about these candle lows, so it could bounce from this point, but I'm thinking it's going to touch support. So 12 to about 15 at support, and then 80 at the all-time high up there. So that'd be a 500% move. G-Link, wow, this thing definitely went much lower than I expected. So yeah, so this now becomes resistance. I did not think it was going to crack that level, but it did. So 40 to 45 at support here, 65 to 85 at resistance. Again, this is the reason why we say that we personally always like to have some dry powder on the side, because you never really know what's going to happen. I mean, it could just give you, I'm not going to say the worst case scenario, but worse case scenario, and then you'll be kind of wishing that you had some money on the side. So 220 at the highs up there. So first move here, 110% and then 443% respectively. GSOL, so big, juicy, fat pullback right here. I'll give you guys the levels. I don't know that this, I honestly can't tell you if this is going to go lower than this triangle pattern here. But the support that we were looking at is 172 to about 200. It's currently sitting on this kind of line here. Ideally, this would test as resistance, break out, retest as support, and then take off. So it is a potential buy zone. That's about 420. And then 584 all the way up at the highs up there. So from current price to the highs, 38% move. But from the support zone down here all the way up to the highs, roughly about 210. I'd say about 200 to maybe 230%. GXLM surprisingly is actually up. It's held up pretty well. I'm quite surprised considering how brutal the last few days have been. So somewhere between this line and these lows here would be support. So 25 to about 27. Resistance would be the target. So 52.50 to 59, and then 70 all the way up at the swing high up there. I'll just measure from the line because, I mean, we have 3 out of these 4 candles are red, so there is a chance it may go lower. So 133% move to 176% move. Mana, so this thing finally came down to this line I was telling you all about, and it's pretty much sitting on it perfectly. So again, that's about $11. If you're wondering what the level is below that, it's 150 to 380. And then current resistance, $17.50 to about $20. And then 70 all the way up there at the highs. So from here to the resistance, about 70%, and then 515%. However, if it goes lower, which I don't know that it does, but it could happen, 700, wow, 766% just to get back up to $20. That's crazy. And then you're looking at roughly about 2,900%. Again, this is the reason why it's always, again, just my opinion, but it's always a good idea to stack your crypto bags at the bottom of the bear market or as close to it as possible, and then just buy nothing after that, or DCA in. Don't get like huge positions. Obviously, we bought more after the bear market lows, but that's different because we kind of understand the cycles. Most people don't. So we're below this support here. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to resistance. So the new level of support we're looking at is basically this line down here. So 320, and this is for Zcash. So 440 to roughly about 510 as the first resistance, 8 to 960, and then above that 10 and a quarter. So from that point, you're looking at roughly about 63%, 208%, and 230% respectively. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.